Welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us on a Wednesday night I'm in the Mountain Time Zone. I'm looking at the attendees. I see West Coasters, I see East Coasters. I know we have several individuals overseas who are interested in watching this, who are going to be watching the recording, which is really exciting. And we will be posting this recording on the USRowing website. It will most likely be up by tomorrow, but at the latest on Friday. We will also have some key takeaways listed from the webinar, ideally, so that people that don't have time to watch the whole thing can maybe at least get some key points on it. I am joined by my co-host, Steph Fryer, who is a full-time USRowing employee in our learning and development department. Steph, you want to say hello?
Hi, everybody. So I work in our learning development department, and I oversee the lower two levels of our pathways camp, the selection development and pathways.
Great. So we'll go ahead and get started. We do have about 50 slides to get through, but a lot of them are really quick. We will be taking questions, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. Besides Steph and I, so Steph and I, even though we work kind of in different departments at USRowing, I am part of the high performance staff. My boss is our chief high performance officer, Josie Verdonschot. And he joined me on two previous webinars, one on the under 23 team mission and one on the U19 team mission. And then Steph represents, more of the domestic side of USRowing. Our other camps live in the learning and development department. So between Steph and I, we represent and are the management essentially of our U19 camps that we run both during the winter and during the summer. And then below us, we have our contract coaches that we work to actually run those camps. So on my side, I'm joined by Eric Gerke and Caitlin McLean, who are head men's and heads women's coach for the U19 team. I'm going to invite them to say hello. And maybe if you could both just give us a brief, say, where are you currently coaching and, past involvement with the U19 team. So Caitlin, let's start with you.
All right, sorry about that, trying to unmute myself. I'm Caitlin McLean. This is my 10th, 11th year with U19. Started with the development levels in 2014 and then have been in the lead head role since 2021. Currently coach in Seattle at Seattle Pacific University and previous to that at Holy Names Academy.
Great, thank you, Caitlin. Caitlin's our head women's coach. Eric.
Hi. I've been coaching in the USRowing camps since 2009, 2010. And the men's head coach for this will be year 5. I currently coach for the University of Oklahoma women's program.
Excellent, which is new for you. New.
Yes.
And then just want to do one quick plug that last summer, our 2024 campaign was very successful with Eric and Caitlin leading their staffs, including 2 medals for men and 2 medals on the women's side, which is really amazing, including a world championship for our women's 8 that Caitlin coached. Great. We're also joined by our head U19 selection development coach, who is Paul Bugenhagen. Paul, can you say hi and talk maybe briefly about last summer and and where you currently coach?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Paul Bugenhagen. I'm currently the director of rowing at Hobart and William Smith Colleges, and I also serve in the capacity of the head coach of our women's program. I've had the privilege of supporting junior teams and under 23 teams starting way back in 2005 and then working through there at a variety of different years. And last year was my first year leading the camp, and it was a great experience for all of our athletes, and certainly looking forward to doing it again this summer.
Great. Thanks, Paul. And we're excited to have you here. And we're very excited to have, our lead coaches already in place for these camps in November, because we know that that's going to really serve us well as we plan, as we get ready to survey applications and admit athletes to camp. Great. So this is what we're going to cover today. We're going to do a camp overview of kind of the different layers of the U19 camp, starting with our summer camps. Then we will also address the winter camps that we offer. We'll get into some details for each of those camps. We'll talk about how we're going to be identifying athletes. That process has already begun, and we'll talk through how the coaches work through that and how our camps kind of all feed together. And then we will finish with the application invitation process. I'm going to go ahead and say it because I know the Q&A is going to start going. We will cover Coxswain identification, and Coxswain application process. That will be covered. One thing that I'm going to try to steer away from a little bit is 2 weeks ago, I hosted a webinar with Yosi where we were going over the overall U19 team mission and some of the changes that we were doing to that program. If there are questions on that on this call, I will, and we have time at the end, I will address them, but I'm going to really focus on kind of the nuts and bolts of each camp as opposed to the overall high performance mission. Steph was kind enough, I believe, because I saw it pop up, put the link to that webinar. We do have we did record it. So if you didn't get to see that and you have questions as we're going through this about like, okay, what's the point here? Like why is US Rowing doing that? That webinar really covers the why. So please, I highly encourage you to watch that if you haven't watched it and you have questions in those areas. All right, so let's get into the U19 camp overview. I'm going to start and then I'll kick it to Steph for the camps that she specifically deals with. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Steph. I was going to forget. We would like to get an idea of who's with us on the call. We have a lot of stakeholder groups that are interested in this call, whether it's athletes, coxswains, and coxswains, I know you're athletes. So rowers, coxswains, parents, coaches from different spheres of the rowing world. So we want to know who you are. So please, oh, wow, you guys are on it. These answers are coming in real quick. Yes. So please let us know who we got here. I'm seeing mostly parents and athletes, which is awesome, which is great. Couple coaches, some youth coaches, which is great because I know we heavily rely on our youth coaches to, both point athletes towards our camps, especially the U19 national team. And also I know Eric and Caitlin, and I'm sure that will also be Paul this year, contact a lot of college coaches throughout the year, youth coaches throughout the year when asking questions about athletes. All right, I'm going to end the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Great. All right. So that's really helpful for Steph and I as we go through that. We see that, wow, we got about half athletes, just under half athletes, a lot of parents and a few coaches. All right. Thank you all. Really appreciate you taking the time to do that. Okay. Let's get going. All right. So these are the different layers of our camp system specific to the summer. Again, I will talk also about our winter camps and our one-day ID camps because those directly relate to how we assess which athletes should go into which category here. So I will start from Steph. Do you want to go ahead and tackle the bottom 2 layers, and then we'll kind of go up from there?
Yeah, sure. So on the bottom, you'll see we have Pathways Development Camp and Selection Development Camp. So those are the first 2 levels that we have on our pathway system. So we're going to dive a lot more in depth in each of these camps in the future. But so Pathways is that first step, and these are athletes that want to get involved with the US Rowing camp. Maybe they have national team aspirations, or maybe they're looking to go to college, and that's a great first step in the US Rowing system. Selection Development Camp is really athletes that have that potential and are almost at the national team level, and it's developing them a little bit more focused and a little bit more in depth.
Great. And then we get to our selection camp, which again, we will have specifics on like how many athletes we're going to be inviting to that, what that process looks like. So those are athletes that are in the pool to be selected to boats that will compete at the World Rowing Championships. And now what's different from previous years here is I've separated out the selection camp from the actual individuals who will make the U19 national team, because even though everybody that comes to camp will be selected to a boat, those boats then have to meet a time standard in order to progress to be named to the U19 national team. More on that to come, but those are separated out just slightly. We do anticipate that everyone that comes to selection camp will make a boat and those boats will qualify, but we wanted to make sure that everyone understood kind of all of the layers of the system. This is a visual representation of all the camps that we're going to be talking about today. So at the top here, we have our U19 athlete winter ID camps. And so there are 2 versions. We have 2 different types of camps. They are very different, and I will go into more specifics on it, but these are the camps that are coming up soon. They're starting in January. They're running in January and February, and a little bit into early March. And those are the ways that we help that helps us ID athletes. Besides the applications that we receive, besides the coach recommendations and the individual emails that we receive from athletes, these camps are the best option for athletes to actually get seen by national team coaches. And I'll get a bit more into that. And then you can see that we've got the 3 other camps that we were just talking about, the Pathways Development Camp, the Selection Development Camp, and of course the Selection Camp. And these lines kind of illustrate that you don't necessarily have to go in order. There's no requirement that you have to go to Pathways first, then Selection Dev, then Selection Camp. We assess your application and see, what are you ready for now? And we place you in that camp. More on that to come. Great. All right, now we'll go into details by camp, and I'm going to kick it back to Steph again because we're going to start with Pathways Development Camp.
Yeah, so like I said before, so the Pathways Development Camp, this is the first level that we have of our US rowing camp. So you can see the target audience here. We've included what we're expecting the 2K scores to see this year. We'll talk about this a little bit more in depth, but there's probably some wiggle room on either side of these. I think there historically has been the expectation that this is a novice camp, but you see by these 2K times that everything's kind of increasing year over year. And then the other thing that you'll notice is a difference about this camp from previous years is that last year we had the camp separated by genders. So there was a girls camp first and then a boys camp for 2 weeks. But this year we're offering 2 co-ed camps. So there's a camp 1 that's happening in June, and then camp 2 is happening mostly in July. So athletes that are invited to Pathways camp will have the opportunity to choose which camp fits their schedule the best. We are going to be returning the pairs camp. So last year we gave the top 16 athletes on the boys and girls side the opportunity to participate in a pairs specific camp. We're bringing that back this year. If you are invited to a pairs camp, you will, if you want to join that, have to attend the correct week of camp to join in on that. One thing you'll note on this is that we have not published the location yet. Our goal is that this is in Chattanooga again, but we are still finalizing the details with our room and board and our boathouse and all of that. So we will have all of those details for you guys once the application period opens.
Great. Okay. Got a question actually that I do think pertains here, Steph. If your birth date is 07, can you still go to Pathways, even though we've listed here 08 as the target?
Yeah, absolutely. And we have had athletes. I mean, we really try to place you based on your performance potential right now as you apply to camp. So yeah, so like all of these target audience, there's breathing room for most of them on either side.
We'll go Pirates of the Caribbean and say they're guidelines.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So Steph, why should someone attend this camp? What does PDC offer? Like, kind of what makes it unique? What makes it special?
So the thing that's unique, especially in our USRowing camp, so this is strictly a development camp. So this camp is focused on setting you up with the tools and skills that you need to reach your rowing goals, whether that is to see how far you can take rowing in high school, whether that's to go on to college or even to make a national team. We have a really great group of coaches at this camp. That's a mix of Olympians. One of our camp directors is an Olympian. There's lots of college coaches there. So you're going to get a lot of insight on what it actually takes to row in college, what it takes to make the national team, what it's like to make an Olympic team. So there's a lot of hands-on experience that you get with a great group of coaches. And if your goal is to make a national team, ultimately, this is your first chance as a rower to experience a US rowing camp. And it's also the first chance for our coaches to get eyes on you and see what you can do.
Great. And a great question just came in the chat here, or in the Q&A for the 2011 birth dates, which was the younger, end of that range that we gave. Are we looking for those exact same times? Like, does age get taken into account when we're assessing the applications?
Age definitely gets taken into account. I mean, we do try to keep you in the same performance range. Like if you're a lot lower than those, or I guess a lot higher than those times, we don't want to put you in a camp that's kind of reaching too far, given your age and your development currently. So yeah, like we said, they're guidelines. There's wiggle room.
Yeah, no, and I think, something that I know one college coach that I know pretty well always says is there's the score and there's the story. And there may be other factors. It's important that we know those other factors, whether that's you are someone who just started, but your coaches are saying, wow, you're like really far ahead and you have a lot to go. I think all that information really matters. But I think that was a great question. Thank you, Hannah, for asking that. Great. All right, next.
All right, so the next one is selection development camp. So this is the one. So Paul is our head coach. We also have Connie returning as our head women's coach this year. We do have some changes coming to this camp. So you'll see the target 2K times here. Like we've said before, these are just, I think 2K times are really easy for people to focus on, but this really is just one factor that we look at when we're evaluating applications. It is the one that is kind of the simplest and easiest for people to understand. But try not to overly focus on them. The two biggest changes that are coming for this camp is that it is getting a little bit smaller. We're going to address numbers in a little bit. We're basically reducing it by a boat on each gender. And the other thing that's happening to this camp is that Canamex is coming down to selection development camp's side. So the dates are about the same as last year. So late June to mid-July. And then, yeah, I think the questions that are asked are going to address most of the other questions, Brett.
Yeah. No, great. Awesome. Paul, I'd love to, before I go to the next slide, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about your experience with selection development. And it was a different, we changed it significantly from previous years to how we approached that camp. And would love for you to give us, some highlights and your takeaways from it.
Sure. Yeah, I think this camp's really designed with the future in mind. And as we bring the athletes into this environment, the pillars that we're attempting to address are really a holistic, full spectrum development. So getting the athletes to kind of mature in the training loads that they're likely to see when they get into selection camps or into college and national team environments as under 23s. We're also obviously working on skill development, a lot of focus in small boats, sculling, etc. And so your skills are definitely going to level up in this environment, in addition to your fitness. We're also doing a lot of work coaching the athletes to understand the process so that they are a little bit more prepared and understanding, what does selection look like when you're getting into a national team environment. And so last year we introduced the athletes to matrices, small boat matrices, not just seat racing. And so that was a big learning curve for a lot of athletes who had never been exposed to a system like that. And then coaching them through, how were your results? What's going on? We did lactate testing as well, which really gave the athletes a full spectrum understanding of their fitness and what their needs were going to be coming out of the camp and what they should be focusing on. And so our goals are really to make sure that when you graduate to Eric and Caitlin, or if you age out and you graduate to college in the under 23 system, that you really understand what it's going to take from a mental perspective, in addition to a physical perspective of being prepared to find success in those environments. And so that's really our focus with this camp. I think it's rich, it's detail oriented, and it's going to ask a lot of the athletes as they kind of cross the gap between what they're dreaming about and actually being able to attain that aspiration.
Great. A lot of questions start coming in. I am going to be a little bit picky with what I address when, because I know some of these we'll get to. But one question that I do think we can address right now is the different camp experience between Pathways Development Camp and Selection Development Camp. And Steph, I'll put this to you, because my understanding, and I'll let you answer, is that it's actually, in terms of the feel and the flow of camp and the things people are working on, it's really not that different. It's just what, at what stage athletes are at in their development.
Yeah, I mean, the intention is very similar between the two camps. It's really just kind of the level of athletes that is attending each camp. Obviously, the coaches are going to be different, so the coaching style is going to be slightly different. But I know I saw one question come in, are these camps just for eights? And I think Paul addressed it a little bit, especially at these two lower levels of camps. We do a lot more small boat work because it's really focused on skill development.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's go ahead and move on because I think I will get to, and I will keep these questions that we haven't answered yet live, and we will definitely get to them. Okay. Next, so one thing, Steph, that you mentioned that there are some changes. So on here, like this slide last year didn't say anything about an international race experience. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we're really excited. So this year, this is what used to be Canamex is coming down to selection development camp. It's not going to be called Canamex anymore. We'll announce the name when we have the name finalized. But it's really exciting. So it is an international developmental regatta. So we have USA, obviously us, Canada, New Zealand, and Mexico are confirmed attending. This is essentially replacing what we did as an internal race within SDC last year. It's the same idea. It's a developmental regatta. These are athletes that are the same developmental stage as the athletes that we're going to have at selection development camp. Athletes are going to get to race in a bunch of different boat classes. We're doing 1,500 meter races, so you're going to get down the course a lot. You're going to get a lot of good experience racing against some international competition and really challenging yourself.
Great. Awesome. Yeah, and this has been in the works for several months with, talking with these other countries and really trying to fill everyone's development needs on what when they're looking at their national team program and what do these age categories need. So we're really excited to be the home for this new event. Great. All right, Steph, how many athletes are you looking to invite to selection development camp? And will they all participate in this event?
Yeah, so I mentioned it on the previous slide, but SDC is getting a little bit smaller. So we're going to have 72 athletes. So that's 32 rowers and 4 coxswains per gender that'll be invited to selection development camp. The upside of a smaller camp is that every athlete that is attending in selection development camp will participate in the regatta at the end of the camp.
Awesome. Great. Oh, great. I'll take this one. So this is now we're getting into the selection camp, which I don't know if anyone's noticed, but on the previous slide for selection development, both of these camps, selection development and selection camp, will both be occurring in Chula Vista at the Elite Athlete Training Center in Chula Vista on roughly the same dates. The camps will operate independently. There will not be overlap. I mean, there might be workouts that occasionally get done together, but they will not, if you were invited to SDC, you will stay with SDC. And if you're invited to selection camp, you will stay with selection camp. So this is the top tier in terms of the camps that we offer for U19. And when I say top tier, I just mean that the athletes that we are invited to that camp, we see as candidates that they're ready to race at an international level, which for those of you who haven't done that before, it's a significant step up. Going from even the top of the youth nationals or the scholastic national championship races to a world championships is a tremendous step up. And so these are athletes that are developmentally ready for that experience and are at that stage. As we keep saying, and we do have one more slide where we will talk further about 2Ks, and I will try to answer all of the questions that are coming in about this. You can see the 2K ranges there. It is a high bar. It is definitely a high bar. One thing I will say right now is that there's no score that guarantees you a spot at a camp. And likewise, there isn't a score. Well, I guess if you're going 10 minutes for 2K, you're probably not going to get invited to a camp. But there, as Steph said earlier, there is flexibility on either side, but it's going to depend on what I'm going to be talking about with Eric, and I'm going to ask Eric to speak about. It depends on your body of work. So the focus is racing and getting ready to race at the international level and assembling crews that will be competing in the top half at the World Rowing Championships. The other factor is that, athletes that are participating in the U19 selection camp are athletes that are going to be getting exposed. And it does trickle down to all of the camps, but, really trying to transmit what Yosi is doing at the Olympic level with our senior athletes, that we're bringing that to the U23 team and we're bringing that to the U19 team. The application period is we will be selecting those athletes earlier by February 15th so that the selection period so then we have athletes that will then be invited to selection development camp after that date. So we don't have athletes waiting around for, am I going to get an invite to selection? I don't know if I should accept the selection development camp invitation. I've already mentioned our head coaches, and we'll have more information posted as we go into December. So actually, I'm going to ask Eric and Caitlin to just talk a little bit about selection camp, that you guys have been involved in multiple of these. So when you think of an athlete that's ready for selection camp, what are some of what are some of the markers of that? Like if I'm an athlete and I'm staying at home and like maybe I'm not quite at this erg score range, but I think I could get there. Like what are other things that they should be thinking about that may signify that they're ready for this type of experience?
I could start on that. But I think that's a great question because like we said earlier, erg score is often like the lowest hanging fruit of data, but there's a lot of the soft sciences that go into being prepared for selection camp. Obviously, I mean, I said this, I try to say this every year, like athletes who come in with a growth mindset that are focused on their own development and the improvement of how their rowing is and how their blade is moving and not just what seat they're sitting in tend to have a better experience and find themselves lining up at the start line at Worlds. Athletes that come in with a training mindset and understanding how to be a 24-hour athlete and not just a 2-hour athlete do really well also because these are long days with a few training sessions in every day, and we have to be responsible enough to handle our body maintenance and injury prevention and how we eat, how we sleep. And the third thing I'd say before passing to Caitlin is just the capability to, Nick Haley would say to camp well, but also really meaning being away from home, being independent in a responsible and a young adult way, not just getting away from home and then deciding you can stay up till 2 a.m. to play video games, or you can decide to play basketball when you're there, but really understand that you're there to make a world championship team and to develop as well as you can inside the system so you can continue to be passed up in the system. So,
Caitlin?
Yeah, I would echo all of what Eric said for sure. I think the thing I'd add is similar to the growth mindset, but a little different in that it's called the neutral mindset. So being able to, take information in as feedback, right? And in a way of helping you get better and not overthinking it or not, kind of creating this path in your mind about not being maybe good enough or even having maybe a bad row or a less good lineup that you're in one day and it's going poorly or the erg or something like that. Just any of the many ups and downs that happen in our sport, the ability to process it, push the reset button, show up for the next practice in that very same day, and then do that again and again as things go well or not well, right? So I guess I was focusing more on the not well, but even when it goes well, still being able to push yourself for more. So I would just add that into everything that Coach Eric said.
Great, thank you. We're gonna go ahead and move along. How many athletes will be invited to selection camp? We'll all make boats. And Steph, I know I'd asked you to ask the question so I could answer it, not just do it. But I am noticing that we're already at 29 minutes after the hour, so we're going to start clicking along. How many athletes will be invited? So 40 athletes will be invited to selection camp. So per gender, that's going to be 18 rowers and 2 coxswains. This is the number needed to field the straight 4, the quad, and the 8, and 2 alternates per gender. So 2 notes on this. One, I saw a note in the chat in the Q&A. So the Cox 4, we fully anticipate being eliminated from the World Rowing Program. That will be officially announced in March. And we covered that extensively on the previous webinar that was 2 weeks ago. So there are no plans to have Cox 4s at the World Rowing Championships starting in 2025. One thing, just the asterisks on there. So I also talked on the previous webinar a lot about trials and how qualifying for Worlds in the single and double and pair would work. So if you have questions about trials, please watch that webinar. We went into that pretty extensively. If those boats need to make time standard in order to represent USA at the World Rowing Championship. So particularly the double and the pair, if we do not have a boat that qualifies time standard and we feel like those athletes that didn't qualify could potentially with more time make that standard, we may add after trials some additional athletes to selection camp and bring that boat into camp. So add the double or add the pair, but that will be solely dependent on how trials goes. What if you're selected to a boat at selection camp that doesn't meet the 95%? This is new, having time standards for camp boats. It's new, but we've had it for trials boats now for the last 2 years. And Yosi and I both feel strongly that we need to have that same standard for camp. So in the event that happens, those athletes will not compete at the World Rowing Championships. We fully anticipate with the pool of athletes that we have and the coaches that we have coaching those athletes, and with that, we're really just raising the bar, and we fully expect that all of the boats will meet the bar. All right. So I don't know if I need to spend too much time on this. So this is to be named to the national team. You know, you come to selection camp, you are selected to the 8, the 4, or the quad, potentially a double or pair if that doesn't qualify through trials. And then after making the 95% time standard at camp, then you are named to the national team and you continue to train in Chula Vista until you leave for the World Rowing Championships, which that departure date is going to be right around July 30th, with racing occurring in Trakai, Lithuania from August 6th to August 10th. Okay. Keep on going. All right. A lot of questions coming in about, you know, how athletes get ID'd, how coxswains get ID'd. So now we're going to get into that. So this is the slide that Steph and I keep kind of alluding to. Steph, do you want to go ahead and kick this off a little bit? I know you put some notes in the chat.
Yeah, so I've been trying to answer some of the questions that have been coming in. And all the people that are asking about, you know, like the timing of the ID camps and how people get ID'd, we're going to address those in the upcoming slides. But so like we've said before, these are the general 2K times that we expect to see in each camp. One thing that we really want to highlight that you may have picked up, we hope you picked up on earlier, is that both selection camp and selection development camp are getting smaller this year. So you know, even like the time standards that we expected to get to selection development camp in previous years are probably going to be even higher this year. So just keep that in mind as you're applying for camps. And like Brett has said, no score automatically qualifies you to any specific camp. We take lots of other things in your application in mind when we make our invitations.
Great. And so I think this is a common question that it seems there's a theme going on in the Q&A right now. Like, our camp invitations only based on the 2K erg scores. You know, what about water results? Someone in the Q&A was asking about what about height, weight, VO2 max, like, you know, other data points that people might have. So I'm actually going to invite Eric to come on, because something I've heard Eric talk time and time again about with selection camp in particular, but really this goes into all of the camps. It's not specific to selection camp. Is how you need to put together a body of work. So Eric, can you talk through that a little bit?
Definitely. Yeah, I think that this is also a big part of what we do that often doesn't get brought to the front as much. So I appreciate that Brett and Steph put it on here. Like, as career coaches for Caitlin and I, like, your body of work to us is ultimate to deciding, especially now that camp is smaller and everybody needs to make a boat. Us doing our due diligence with you, your coaches, your parents, your practices, your video is incredibly valuable to whether we think that will be worthwhile. Obviously, there are very high standards in a very written way around erg scores and even information out there about size and things like that. But at the end of the day, we're also looking to develop boat movers at this level, at all levels. And it's really valuable now to put yourself in a position to attend the winter camps, to put yourself in front of the eyes of ourselves and Paul and some other coaches that'll be there, whether we can move the straight four, whether we can move in the sculling boats very well to hit the 95% standard that is quite challenging in those boats. So being at winter camps, if you're at that speed to be invited, is incredibly important and should be a priority if summer is something you want. And then similarly, your boat speed at home. And honestly, a lot of the information your coaches give us about your work ethic and ability to work within a team. There's so much that can go into understanding an athlete before you guys walk through the door at Chula. That's more than just your erg score. And we do need to get invites prepared early. So even already, Caitlin and I have been watching, you know, the Head of the Charles results and some of the West Coast results. And we have information from last year's camps from Paul and his staff, and all of that adds up. There's not like a score at the end of it, but it can really across from your name on the spreadsheet start to add up to a very nice line of data. If it's just continuous information that is in the positive, and it doesn't always have to be that you go 559 on the erg. Your body of work is what is in the end going to help you get through what is a long selection process and a hard selection process, because not just one row can make it happen. A whole camp has to make it happen.
Great. Thank you. And Eric, how do athletes communicate with you and Caitlin with, I'll talk a little bit about the application in a minute, but, how would you and Caitlin like to receive that information?
Obviously the application is the one at the leading edge, but also you can email us. Caitlin and I can put our emails in the chat. That's a great way to reach out. Also, the rowing world is small, so rowing coaches, no rowing coaches. So also have your coaches advocate. Not just that a coach advocates is a good sign, but also sometimes if we never hear from the coach, we can also read that information as it is. So also having your coach reach out is helpful, but I would say email us and show that, we want that email to come from the athlete, even if the parents help write it. Just knowing again that an athlete can be away from home, away from their parents, and handle themselves as a young adult. That starts with, can you fill out a spreadsheet or can you fill out a form, and can you write an email and have a conversation with a coach? So.
Right. Thank you, Eric. Yeah. So we'll talk through, some of the other ways. We're getting a lot of questions right now about winter camp, things like that. So I will get into some of that. So, how do you add to the body of work besides what Eric just said? Like, number one is to fill out your US Rowing athlete profile. This is where the application will be. The HP Winter Camp application is currently live. The deadline for that is November 26th. And that is stated on an upcoming slide. But keeping this information up to date is super important. So one reason why we moved the applications to the member portal is because we want your athlete profile within your US Rowing account to be your single source of truth and data. Because what we frequently have happen, and what I'm seeing a lot of questions come in about is, well, should I wait to submit my application because I know I'm going to be testing later, or should I submit it as soon as the application opens on December 1st? And the answer to that is you should submit as soon as you can and keep your athlete profile up to date, because the application is embedded as part of the athlete profile. So it will pull when we pull the report for everybody that's applied for winter camp and for our summer camps, it will give us the most recent score that's in there. Whatever score is listed in your athlete profile, it will pull that score. So as you get PRs, as you get faster, you don't have to email Eric and Caitlin and Paul with, oh, I just knocked another 2 seconds off. All you have to do is update your profile. Doesn't hurt to send an email additionally, but that's why we've been working over the last 18 months to integrate our applications within the athlete profile so that we can have that information in there. So fill this out as completely as you can. You'll notice that we asked for 2K, we asked for 6K, we asked for a 1-minute watts test and a 100-meter test as well. If you do those tests, the more information you can provide to us, the better we're going to be able to assess your application. Okay. For that. So that's the first one. Okay. Attend winter high performance camp or ID camp. Okay. So these kind of fall into 2 different categories. So I'll start with winter camp. That is an application process similar, and it's going to be run exactly the same way as we're going to be running the summer camp applications. And that application goes live December 1st. The high performance winter camp is live now. Okay. And Eric and Caitlin and Paul, I'm sure we'll be asking you to assist with that too. We'll be assessing those applications, and that closes on 11/26, November 26th is the deadline for that. We have 2 different dates. It's a 3-day camp. You come in on a Friday and you leave midday Monday. Come in by midday Friday, leave midday Monday. It's in Chula Vista at the same Elite Athlete Training Center where we're going to be running summer camp. And I've got the standards there. Again, I think we've talked a lot about how the scores are important, but they're not the only factor there. We also have our 1-day ID camps, which we're running 14 locations all across the country. That is a register and go. There is no, you don't have to apply for it. You just register, and you will also be doing that through the US Rowing athlete portal through the profile. And we will open that as well on December 1st with all of those locations. And those occur in January and February. little bit more details on these. So winter camp, target audience, those that are, especially those are interested in throwing their hat in the ring for selection camp. Are they interested, do they see themselves as a U19 candidate, especially in the 4 and the quad, which are the boat classes that we are planning to prioritize. The end decision on what boats we prioritize will be the depth and the pool that we receive. But the plan right now is to prioritize the straight 4 and the quad. I don't know, anyone watch the Olympics this summer? Men's 4 went pretty well. I think they proved that this is a boat class that we can compete in the US, but we have to start now. It has to be a priority, and we can't start the first day of selection camp looking at those athletes. Especially the quad is similar. Those are tough competitive boat classes, and we need to start looking at athletes over winter camp, and Eric and Caitlin need to start thinking, who are the athletes that may fit into this boat class? All right, so that's where winter camp is really, really important. We will be doing the lactate step test, which is a physiological test that we do at all layers of national team. And we will be doing a lot of small boat rowing. We will also go out in 8s. We will be admitting coxswains to this camp. And we will also be doing some small boat racing while we're out there to see, where are we at right now? How far off CST time standard are we? All right, both in Chula Vista, first and third weekend in January. That third weekend is MLK, which we know a lot of athletes have off, which is very nice. And we picked the first weekend in January because when we looked at a lot of academic calendars, a lot of athletes, not all, are still out of school at that time period. Okay, so the application period is now until the 26th of November. All right, and the camp fee is $695. There is scholarship available, and I have a slide a little bit later with scholarship. Steph, is there anything you're seeing in the chat that's specific to HP winter that I should address right now in the Q&A? I can see it peripherally kind of lighting up.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of questions about coxswains and HP winter camp. Should they be applying to HP winter?
Yes, you should. And we'll talk about the coxswain application and how that's going to work shortly.
Okay.
Great. All right. ID camps. So ID camps are registration. You'll register through the member portal. And this is for anyone that is interested in any layer of our camps this summer. There was a question earlier in the Q&A of, if I went to IT camp last year, should I come back this year? Absolutely. It's a half-day program where we have them in strategic locations all over the country. We want to see how you've progressed from last year. And also there's a big focus on education at these. We will be adding this year, one thing that we're adding to the model is a technical presentation. How will we be rowing at U19 camp? How will we be rowing at selection development camp? And that's directly coming from Yosi and Casey Galvanek, who are 2 of our lead coaches at the senior level. All right, and we will be giving those presentations at HP Winter and at the one-day ID camps. Okay, so the registration will go live on December 1st of 2024. And here we have our dates and locations. We're still finalizing Boston and Washington. We are anticipating February for those, but TBD, but we will have that posted in December. So look, which camps are in your area? A question I get a lot is, should I go to both HP Winter if I get invited and the one-day ID camp? And the answer is no. If you get accepted to HP Winter and you come and spend 3.5 days with us in Chula Vista, you are not required to come to one of the half-day ID camps. Okay. Steph, anything specific to ID camps in there? I think I saw something about
there were
coxswains go to ID camps and how do they get ID'd? So that's a great question. We are not going on the water for these camps. Here is the kind of run of show of a typical day at one of these ID camps. The format gets tweaked depending on how many athletes come, how many ergs are available. Some sessions, like at the Marin location, I think the PNRA location, they had to break into either 2 or 3 groups. Oftentimes it's men go in one flight and women go in another. So that could extend the day a little bit for how this looks. But I mentioned the technical presentation. There is specific coxswain programming that is directly related to national team coxing. We have a coxswain committee that runs those sessions. It's a live person, a person either that's live in person, or it's a Zoom session where we put the coxswains in a room where they can have a live Zoom session and a presentation with a national team level coxswain, which is really, really cool, including coxswains that won medals this past year, this past summer, which is pretty cool. So coxswains, highly recommend that you attend one of these. If you're interested in participating in any of the summer camps, it is valuable. You will get education. The feedback that we received last year was very good. All right. Now I'm going to plow into application process. How do we apply to this? And Steph, I think I'll let you talk and I'll look through the Q&A and see, if there are specific questions that I can answer while you do that.
Sounds good. So first, how do we apply for HP Winter and the summer camps, and how do you register for an ID camp? A lot of you are asking this question in the chat. So all the applications are now in the member portal. So for the HP Winter camps, they're live right now. And then for the summer camps as well, you're going to be able to see and track your application status through the portal. So we'll walk through some screenshots so that you can get an idea of what this looks like.
Oh no, can you see it? Or is it
I know it's broken.
Oh no, okay, well hold on, I'm gonna stop my share and I'll refresh and we'll bring it back up. So 1 second, everybody. Steph, do you want to kind of go through if there's some questions there you want while I do that?
Yeah, so basically we've tried to make it as simple as possible. So when you log into your member portal, on the left-hand side, there's all those little icons on the side. And what you're going to look for, there's one, it's called camps. It used to be called Learn and Grow. We got them to change it to camps just to make it a lot easier and simpler to find. And then once you click on camps, it'll pop up with a screen that just gives you all of the camps that have an open application right now. We have some screenshots for you once you get it up. And then oh, you're good. We really have tried to make this a lot simpler this year, both on you guys and on us. As last year we had over 1,000 applications, so it's a lot of numbers and data to get through. And once you're in there, once you apply for a camp, you can actually check in and see the status of your application. I have seen a lot of questions in the chat that come in on like whether or not, there we go.
Yay!
So that's what it looks like. There's the camps logo on the left-hand side. You can go ahead and jump through the next screen, Brett. The next slide.
Yep, forgive me, I'm on the wrong thing. There we go. Okay.
Yeah, so this is what it'll look like. So right now, the HP Winter camps are open. I'm guessing most of you aren't going to apply for U23, but when you go in, it'll say U19 Winter Camp in there as well. So once you click the apply button, then it'll take you directly to your athlete profile, and it'll prompt you to update your athlete profile. There'll be 3, we've had some questions about this. So if you select your position as rower, it will require you to enter a 2K time and your height and your weight. If you select your position as a coxswain, it won't require you to enter a 2K time. I think does it still require height and weight? I don't remember.
It does.
If you're a coxswain, it does. Okay.
We need that information.
And then really important, you must click submit after you update your profile information. And once you do that, there'll probably be another screen for the summer camp applications that ask a few more questions. But then once you get through those final questions, hit submit, you'll get to this screen where you can see all of the status. So basically, if you click on application pending, it'll show you what applications you have successfully submitted, what ones we can see. And then once we go in and invite you to a camp, so say you apply for a selection development camp, we invite you to selection development camp. Then if you click on that invitations to review tab, you'll have the opportunity to say, yes, I want to go to selection development camp. And then you'll have to pay your deposit to confirm your spot in camp. So we've tried to make it as easy as possible. One other thing that you'll see that we have this year is we have the option to waitlist you. So you may see yourself, like perhaps you get waitlisted for selection development camp, and you also get an invitation to Pathways Development Camp. Those are some things that might happen this year with your application.
Yeah, and I saw a lot of questions in the Q&A about, do you apply for all 3? Like, how does this work? So let's be clear that there's going to be 1 application for you.
No, there's going to be 3.
Sorry. Steph, you go. Okay, we changed it.
We've worked, we will have 3 different applications. So there'll be a selection camp, selection development camp, and Pathways Development Camp. There might actually be 2 for Pathways Development Camp, like the Camp 1 and the Camp 2, because they're different dates. That's to be determined. But basically, you can apply for all of them, or you can apply for one of them, but we will invite you to the camp that is the best fit for you. So if you apply for selection camp, but really you're a good fit for Pathways Camp, we will probably decline your application for selection camp, and then we will manually invite you for Pathways Camp. So we have the ability to kind of invite you to the camp if you just apply for one and we think you're a better fit for another.
Awesome. Okay. So yeah,
Almost there.
yeah, a lot of questions have been coming in about, what's the Coxswain ID and application process. So first one, Coxswains fill out, as Steph was just pointing out, the exact same application that's going to be posted by December 1st, or for HP Winter, that's already live. We are accepting HP Winter Coxswains as well. So the exact same application, make sure your height and weight is accurate and you indicate that you're a Coxswain on that so we can see that. Step 2 is we are asking for a 2-minute audio recording and a coach recommendation questionnaire through an upload form on the website. So when you currently, and Steph, I think you might have hopefully a link to that. I think if you could add in the U19 Camps page link, so if anyone wants to go see it right now, they can see that there's a special addendum that was just added today for Coxswains that has 2 links. The form where you upload, you will tell us some more information about your coxing background and upload your 2-minute race recording, side-by-side racing, and this is detailed in that form on what we're looking for there. We want to hear what you sound like in the heat of battle, ideally a 2K and not a head race. If you do not have a 2K race recording against other crews, the next best thing is a side-by-side practice of a competitive practice, but we definitely prefer a 2K at some point. The second one is the coach nomination form, which we had this last year and we're having it again. So if you are applying to camps, HP Winter or summer camps Coxswains, you need to make sure that your head coach is on board with that, is going to support your application. So we need to hear from them that they see you as a coxswain that has potential or is already at that national team level and that we should be considering for selection camp. We want to hear from your coach. And there's a lot of criteria in there that we ask them to evaluate you on as well. So those are required. The coach nomination form, as well as the 2-minute race recording, are both required. Okay. Steph, were you able to put that link in the chat?
Yes, I believe I did.
Great. Thank you so much. This is new this year. So this is specific to U19 selection camp. So being selected to the under 19 national team. There are 2 things I want to point out. The first one, that now there's no Cox 4 at the World Rowing Championship. So if you are from a program that only has Cox 4s, I'm very sorry to say this, but we will not be considering you for coxing the U19 national team 8. An 8 and a 4 are different, and we need coxswains that have experience in the 8 and going the speed that is at least close to what an international U19 8 goes. And I think, for those of you that have done this, have raced in boats, whether on the men's or women's side, that are going, whether it's, I call it A-B final of youth nationals speed, that feels differently than a boat that's going 30, 40 seconds slower. And that is an important criteria for being a national team coxswain. It's the same at the under 23 level. It's the same at the senior level. So some people may see this as very unfair. If I'm not at a top program and I'm a coxswain, I can't get selected to one of those 2 spots per gender, because that's it. 2 per gender. So 4 coxswains total going to the under 19 selection camp. It's a high bar. You need to be practicing and racing in boats that are going close to the speed that you would be going at the World Championships. Eric, Caitlin, do you guys have any comments on this? This is new this year. And for a lot of people, this is a hard line in the sand of what we're requiring for those coxswains.
I'm glad that we're verbalizing it. Honestly, it's
kind of been unsaid for many.
I mean, it's not very different from the skill set we asked the rowers to come in with, the ability to move boats at a certain boat speed and keep up with the water in a way that is not always the speed that they feel at home. So
yeah, it's super important. Caitlin, you coxed a pretty darn fast, or you coached a pretty darn 8. You didn't cox it, sorry.
Did not cox it.
An 8 that was pretty darn fast this past year.
Yeah, I mean, there's just the coxswain's role is so obviously multifaceted, multidimensional, and you have to be able to do all the things at speed and be able to be really efficient with running practice, certainly, but then ultimately making the calls in the heat of the moment. And
you
sorry, similar to Eric, I'm glad we're kind of sharing that piece of information, because I think it's, and whether we knew it was impacting or not, it's you can kind of see it in how the coxswains perform at camp as well in that body of work concept.
Great, thank you. I want to note that selection camp is only one part of our pathways system. There's selection development camp and pathways development camp that both accept coxswains. Steph, do you want to talk at all about, so like this criteria doesn't apply for that necessarily. Do you want to talk
Right.
anybody? Paul, I'd love if you have thoughts on like what you would look for in a selection development camp coxswain.
I mean, I personally am not the one that selects our coxswains for selection development camp, but I will speak to, I know that this year I'm going to be taking a little bit more control over the coxswain curriculum. Our coxswains are going to be a lot more involved on a day-to-day basis with kind of everything happening at camp. And I will say that we are hoping to have more cocked boats in our regatta, but that is kind of TBD. But we're hoping to create more opportunities for our coxswains at selection development camp to develop them as well.
Paul, any comments?
Only that, if these force coxswains aren't able to make this camp, that if they've got the right bones to be an elite coxswain, that's going to be expressed and recognized, and we'll develop that person so that they're ready to go. And then, this is one of a long list of pathways. And so if you're intent in doing this, like keep fighting for it, and you'll be recognized. So I'll leave it at that. We have a detailed coxswain curriculum that Steph's going to lead. That's going to be very, very potent for all of these young people.
I want to make sure I get this question came up multiple times in the Q&A. So I want to get through this, and I believe this is kind of our last area, and then we'll start addressing some of the questions that we haven't gotten to. I do anticipate we are going to go past 9 o'clock Eastern for that, but we are recording for those that need to leave. And panelists, I appreciate if you're able to stay on just a little bit longer, but I think we'll be close. Are there scholarships available for camp? Yes. For winter HP and summer camps, all layers of our camps have scholarships available through the United We Row Fund. The scholarship application is already posted for HP winter. That link that Steph put in earlier, it says the coxswain, and then the coxswain information, and then below it also has the scholarship information for that. How are those assessed? So there was a question in the Q&A about how is that assessed? It kind of depends on the camp. The criteria is slightly different for pathways development, selection development, and selection camp and HP winter for that. So for pathways development, because it's a broader range, the 2K requirements aren't as steep as the other camps. We are looking to increase diversity, equity, and inclusion. That is a factor that we're looking for when we're assessing scholarship for that. Financial need is always assessed for every single layer. As you move up the camps, when we get to say selection camp and HP winter camp, we do start to factor in where the athlete is from a rowing development standpoint. An athlete that is someone that we see as a potential U19 national team member and expresses and demonstrates financial difficulty, they may get more assistance than someone that's not being considered for U19 team. But we have set amounts set aside for every layer of camp. So it's not one pot where, maybe it's all going to go to selection camp. That is not the case. We have amounts for each individual camp, including high performance winter camp. Steph, what other questions did you see more questions in the Q&A related to scholarship?
I haven't seen any in scholarship, but we've gotten lots of questions that I think we didn't answer. How many people are going to be admitted to winter HP?
Excellent. Yeah. So at the target, and again, I think a big shift we're making for selection camp, and I'd include winter HP here, is that it's less about we're going to take this exact number and more about how many athletes apply there at the level. And within those, the erg ranges and the body of work that we're talking about, but our max that we can hit is 60 per camp. So 120 total is the max that we can take in terms of capacity. Great question. I will just say one more thing about scholarship, and then we can move on to all of these Q&As, is that for the scholarship, it's going to ask you there are certain things that are required for you to answer, and then there's some options. So there are options for uploading tax returns. If you've received scholarship from other areas, like if you get a scholarship for your home program, if you're a part of any other subsidized programs, like any documentation that will help demonstrate your need, we highly encourage you to include those, because again, similar to the body of work as a rower, the more information we have about your financial picture, the easier it's going to be for us to assess, how much scholarship we can provide. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and stop the share so that we can get to the questions and people can see everybody. And Steph, let's start combing through these. What we got?
Yeah, I see a lot of questions about timing and should you apply early? This a little bit depends on the camp that you're applying to. Like some of the slides we showed about selection camp. So those decisions are going to be made for selection camp a lot earlier this year. Like Eric and Caitlin and Brett highlighted, we highly recommend, especially for selection camp, that you attend HP Winter Camp. So for the rest of the layers of camp, we won't. So applications we hope will open December 1st. That's our intention. And then we'll start reviewing those applications in mid-January once we have some of the ID camps and the HP Winter Camps under our belt. So yes, it helps to apply early and get your application in and then keep your 2K up to date if you have improvements in that time. And then I would say if you're waiting to apply after that, then that could actually impact, because camps, once we start inviting people to camps will fill up and we will run out of space. It's a little bit different for selection camp than for the lower 2 levels of camp, but I hope that answers that question.
Great, awesome. I saw a question in there about, there's a lot of questions about when they're expected to meet these 2K markers. And so I think I already addressed how you can always update your athlete profile with your current metrics. And that includes past the March 1st or the first selection camp, the February 15 date. We will have a wait list for every layer of camp. So in terms of like, if your scores improve or like if it's later than that, yes, we will pay attention to that, especially for waitlisted athletes. I saw one comment in there from a coach who, hi, Deb. Deb was a junior teammate of mine, about, that a lot of people aren't 2King until much later. If you have an athlete, if you're a coach and you have an athlete that you feel like should be at one of these camps and is at the level, and Deb, I know you know what the level is, communicate with Eric, communicate with Caitlin. Like I said, body of work. It's not just about like the score that they're pulling on February 15th. If you have more data, more things that indicate that this athlete should be in whatever camp, please communicate that information. We know that a score doesn't tell us everything. It doesn't give us the full picture. Eric, Caitlin, do you guys want to make any comments about that? Like receiving information from coaches, maybe talking about how important it is, like I said, for the Coxswains, for the coaches to kind of champion their athletes.
Yeah, I'll just say that, I mean, it's definitely helpful to have communication from the coaches, and whether that's, I know Eric and I both are reaching out to coaches to try to, check in on their athletes. So being, responsive to that, and then, being proactive if there's someone, like I remember a conversation I had recently where the coach was describing an athlete as just doing the things, the 24/7 things of body maintenance and leading the team in that way, and that was a change from previous years. And so things like that are some of those soft science, or those like intangible things that aren't in the application, that is really helpful to hear and to know. And similar with Coxswains, I mean, I think Coxswains are incredible. I mean, they do so much to help us as coaches. And so there's obviously a feeling of when you have a really great Coxswain that stands out. And I think, just recognizing that the selectivity at the highest level is what it is, but we definitely need to hear from coaches, because you experience your athletes every day, and we only have these snapshots. So highly encourage and welcome that outreach and that response to our outreach.
Yeah, I would just echo everything she said and add, like, we're year-round rowing coaches as well. So if you have any information on your athlete, we hopefully are capable of translating it, whether it's different workouts, other sports they might play. We can, as any coach could decipher what a 12x500 workout might mean versus them actually having done the test in that moment. So any communication at that level is just really, really helpful.
Great. Awesome. I've been answering, questions I think people can see as I go. Like, for example, like if I want to apply for STC and my 2K is currently this and dropping, do I have a shot if it's not where it needs to be by December 1st? No, like the application goes till March 1st. Like apply now and then keep that score updated as you have them. Okay. What else? Steph, what else do you see? What other, hopefully we can lump some of these together.
I've seen a couple questions about para athletes and if that will be taken into consideration. We
Case by case
definitely,
basis. Yeah.
yeah, it's a case by case basis. We've definitely had para athletes in these camps before. I do also want to note that we do have para specific camps available as well. But yeah, we do definitely have para athletes. I'm trying to run through these questions as quickly as I can.
Yep, I'm going through. I think we answered that one already. Is there opportunities for lights or only heavies at camp? So as you know, as you may or may not know, there is no lightweight category for U19. Both internationally, there are no U19 lightweight events. We definitely look at height, weight, erg, everything. I think a question I've gotten a lot in the past is, do you weight adjust if I'm lighter? And the answer is, I mean, yes, to an extent, but there's no template. If you look at the talent characteristics document that we went over very heavily in the webinar 2 weeks ago, you'll see on that Yosi does have a calculation for how, weight does change, how we view those scores. But ultimately it's the body of work. It's not just, there's no set, you hit this score at this weight and you're invited. It's also, I think water results for the lighter athletes matter more. Eric, Caitlin, would you agree with that? I know we can point to multiple examples, like the stroke of our men's 4, Cox 4 this past summer was fairly light, but his body of work was pretty impressive.
Yeah, definitely. And then also echoing, or not echoing, but just really putting it out there that fast lightweights are still very fast. Like coming in saying, "Oh, I'm a lightweight, I pull 640." Like the lightweights that make this team are still sub 620 or close to 620 on the men's side. So there's still the capability to create that amount of wattage is still capable at that level. So I would still push yourself to get the erg down to that level, knowing that there are other lightweights walking around the country with those scores. And then, like she said, the on-water resume goes a very, very long way. We had a couple of lighter athletes this summer that had very strong racing resumes and good erg scores as well that were able to overcome maybe some vertical barriers that they had.
Thank you. We still have lots of questions, which is great. Again, I think the previous webinar I know would answer some of these. Let's see. I'm going to focus on, we've answered that.
We've had a few questions about race results and coach recommendations. We've been trying to get it so that you can put that in the athlete portal. I don't think that's going to happen for this application. So if you have extra stuff, Brett, I think we were just suggesting them to email it in. Is that
yeah, directly? Yep. Let's see what else. I think we've already said that. I see a question here about apply for as many camps as you want, all 3, and we will assess and make decisions accordingly. Winter camp. I think we answered how to apply for winter camp. Oh, this is a good question. I saw this appear twice. How much weight do you give to athletes who attended one of your camps in 2024 in evaluating their selection for a 2025 camp? I think what's really beneficial about if you've been to a camp before is Eric and Caitlin know who to ask about you. For example, if you were at selection development camp with Paul and, who are Eric and Caitlin going to talk to about that? They're going to contact Paul. They're going to contact Connie, ask about how you performed in camp. There's definitely overlap there. That also goes for Pathways Development Camp from last year, which was called Youth Development Camp. So Sean and Megan McCourt, who run that camp, Steph's having weekly meetings with them, athletes that were a part of previous camps. It adds to the body of work. We've seen you, that you've been seen within the system. So that I definitely think it's beneficial. What if you submit your 2K time after you submit your application? I think we've covered that the member portal, as long as you keep that up to date, you'll be good to go. Will you take steps to verify submitted 2K times? We go on an honor system. If you decide to put a false score up, you will be found out. eventually. You will be found out, whether that's because we're going to call your coach and ask them, or you're going to come to, worst case, you're going to come to camp and it's going to be revealed pretty quickly that that score is not real. And that may ruin for future opportunities for you. So we operate on an honor system for that. But good question. What else? Does the portal automatically include racing results? It does not. I think Steph just covered that. That should go directly to coaches. Is it beneficial for Coxswains to apply to the HP Winter Camp? If you want to be at selection camp this summer, yes. I do not see a Coxswain bypassing HP Winter and going to selection. It could happen if they're in a top youth nationals or scholastic nationals, you know, top crew that's winning, going the speed that we're looking for and the coach is recommending. And there's a lot of other things that indicate that, but it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. So if you are trying for one of those four spots, you should definitely be applying for HP Winter. Should our teams be doing 6Ks? I am not going to mandate at the U19 level that everybody should do a 6K, but I will say that when we get to U23s and senior team, Yosi does mandate it. So if you're not doing 6Ks, I would talk with your coach about that. Is there an upcoming 5K that you could do a 6K instead so that we can get that data point on you? Great question. Steph, what else? I mean, we're not going to get to all of these. I think a lot of them have been answered. If you're U19, can you also apply for U23? Go for it. Throw your hat in. Yep, I'll be evaluating those applications as well. We have a U23 HP Winter Camp. The deadline for U23 HP Winter Camp is the 16th, Saturday. All right, we talked about para. Is a 1500 okay? It is not. For you, we need a 2K. We need a 2K. We need to compare apples to apples there. I feel I'm going rapid fire there. Let's see. Eric, 6K standard. Eric and Caitlin. What's a 6K score for U19 that both of you would say, ooh, should pay attention to that?
I mean, for the men, sub 20 minutes is starting to become kind of the line in the sand, and then close. If you're not sub 20, you're right there.
Okay.
Yeah, I usually think of a range of 155 to 158 splits for the women.
Should coaches recommend athletes for selection development as well as selection camp? Absolutely. Again, body of work. The more information we have on you, the better we're going to be able to assess what camp is the best fit. And I really hope people are starting to see that we're not trying to keep people out of camps. We're trying to put people in the best situation that's going to progress them along the pathway, given where they are right now. We answered that.
I'm feeling like we've answered a lot of these. I've had a few questions about if we're sharing this presentation, and this will be posted on the website afterwards.
Yes. Will be posted on the website afterwards. Very great.
A question about transportation. We will pick you up at the airport.
We will pick athletes up at the airport. That's correct. It's a full service camp. It's a full service camp, meals included, lodging, you betcha. All three of them. What drag should I put the erg at for my time submission? Usually 120 for men, 110 for women is typical. If you apply for Steph, here's a good one for you. What if you apply for one of the PDC sessions and it doesn't have any spots? Will you be offered a spot in the other one for Pathways Development Camp?
Yes, I will say we are still, we're determined to make this, you can pick which camp you go to work. So I would say it's kind of TBD how we're going to make that work in our application system. But I'm thinking what will probably happen is that, especially if you're early on, we'll offer you a spot at both and you get to pick. Or we may include that as part of the application, which is your preference, which camp is your preference. And as long as there's spots in the camp that you prefer, then you can choose which camp you go to.
Great. And then Eric and Caitlin, here's a good one. Am I wrong in by saying it looks like a good amount of Kenemex and selection development athletes from 2 summers ago made the team this past summer and made it fast?
That's a good question. Yes, they did.
There were several. Yeah.
Yes.
And and that's really cool. to see athletes progress like that. Yeah, and we also had some athletes that actually we had a couple male athletes that were at SDC at this past summer, Paul, right? That got elevated to selection camp kind of at the 11th hour.
I think the pathway works.
Yeah, thanks. Okay. Well, how will nationals results help our application if invitations for camp are sent before nationals? Oh, that's a great question. This is something that Eric and I kind of go back and forth on quite a bit. I think it really depends. That's a really good question. So I mentioned before that there will be additional people could be invited post trials for that. In terms of youth nationals or scholastic nationals results, we're really trying to assess you as an individual athlete. So unless you're racing in the single, if I don't mean it that if you're in a fast 8, that's great. And I think that if you've been in fast boats previous to when the application is due, that's definitely a factor. But Yosi often talks about, like, if you're in an 8 or even a 4, it's like, how do we know it's you? Is it the aggregate of the crew? Also, when we're taking into account the race results from the spring, we're taking into account a lot of factors. So again, if it's an 8, we're taking into account how good was your coxswain? How good were the other 7 people in your boat? How strong was your overall team? We're taking into account your coach. How well did they coach you? How well was the periodization of your training? All of those factors, and you're one of those factors, but again, you're only one. So we're trying to assess you as an individual, and that's why we're making these decisions really early. Okay.
We had a question about overseas-based athletes. Overseas-based athletes can definitely attend PDC.
Yes, they can attend. Well, if you have a U.S. passport, if you have a U.S. passport, you can attend selection camp and selection dev. You have to have a U.S. passport.
I would say, and then regardless, you can attend PDC.
Yeah, well, you'll take anyone, Steph.
Well, because there's not the limiting factor of world rowing nationality at PDC.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just looking through. I think a lot of these we've answered. I think we're doing a really good job. Oh, we answered that. We answered that.
This one is a similar question that we already addressed, but like if you apply for a lower camp, like say you apply for Pathways camp and we think you're a better fit for selection development, yes, we will move you up.
Yep. Great. We answered that.
Brett, do you recommend if someone comes to HP Winter, should they also attend an ID camp?
No. If you go to HP Winter, you do not need to attend an ID camp. And yet Winter HP 10 is an application. It's not a registration and go. It's you apply, and application is due November 26th. Caitlin, Eric, and I will assess the group, and we will issue invitations early December. Yeah, we did that. Okay. Anything else you're seeing, Steph?
Do we do drug testing?
Any athlete that's part of the U19 national team at the World Championships can be drug tested at any time, but it's only at the World Championships. So no, we do not drug test at camp, but that makes me nervous. Should we be drug testing at camp? Is that something we need to worry about? We have some HGH going on. No, we do not drug test at camp.
We did get a few questions about pathways and size, and I answered a few in the chat, but each pathways camp will have 60 per gender in each camp.
Yes. Oh no, sorry, it's 30 per gender. It's 60 total, 30 per gender. So
60 per gender in each camp.
Oh, no.
120. Yes.
Correct. Yeah. Answered that.
I know the ID camps are not over the summer. They're just in the winter.
Correct.
Just a recent question about that.
Oh, should we share a video? Yes. Email to Eric and Caitlin. We're dreaming of a world where you can put video in the member portal. It's not there yet. We're dreaming of a world someday. How many applications are usually received for HP Winter Camp? Well, last year was the first year we ran HP Winter Camp. Eric, Caitlin, I want to say it was around 300. That sound right? Somewhere. It was definitely more than double. Yeah. We got a lot. It's a lot to comb through, which is great. It's awesome that there's so much interest, and the camps went great last year. We got great tangible feedback from it. So if you qualify for one of those camps, highly recommend attending. No, winter camp, it's all inclusive, similar to summer camp. So there's someone asked a question about lodging. Yep, all of that's included. We did that. Okay. I think we got to cut this off at some point, Steph. I feel like I feel like we've answered a lot of questions. There's a recording. We've put emails in the chat. We are available for questions after more and after this event. But thank you all. Went 20 minutes over, panelists. Thank you all for staying on. I love to see that we have so much interest in these camps. And I think it speaks to the work that our 3 head coaches here did last year, that we have so many people that are interested in returning this year. And there's always, the baseline goal of US Rowing is to keep people rowing. So even if you're not accepted into one of the camps that we've detailed here, like still, come to an ID camp, like see what it's like, find out what the level is. There are so many great options out there beyond even the camps that we offer. And we hope to keep as many people involved in this sport as possible. Steph, do you have any final thoughts before we sign off?
I just second everything that Brett said. I think that we've made some exciting changes for our camps coming up this year, and we're really excited to get them rolled out and get you guys applying.
Okay, great. Well, thank you all. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, and we look forward to seeing many of you at these winter high performance camps, summer camps, and the one-day ID camp. So December 1st, everything will be live. That's not already live. All right. Thank you all.